Welcome to Junior Sports Marketing, where we talk with the brands, athletes, and innovators pioneering youth sports. It's a $50 billion ecosystem, and it keeps growing. With nearly 50 million parents making up the world's most passionate fan base, this is the new frontier of sports marketing. Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm sitting down with Shannon Gallagher, who is the global head of partnership activation, business development, and sales at Gallagher Insurance. Gallagher is one of the world's largest insurance brokerages and risk management firms, and over the last decade, it's become one of the more active brands in sports, from Premiership Rugby to individual teams like the Cubs, Atlanta Falcons, and Milwaukee Bucks. Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you for having me, Cam.
Yeah, very excited. Gallagher is very close to me here in Chicago. I've got some buddies that work at the firm, so I'm tapped in, but I'm really excited today to talk to you about all things sports and specifically youth sports. But without further ado, let's get to know Shannon a little bit. Shannon, who are you? What's your background? How did you get started at Gallagher?
Sure. So I am a former AYSO soccer player.
There we go.
Turned high school soccer player, turned college rugby player, turned working business professional. There has largely been outside of Gallagher in new startup ventures, either within large companies, starting something new, or in true tech startups. But kind of at the core of it, data analytics, marketing optimization. And how I got started at Gallagher, probably about 15 years old, doing office-based tasks like filing in triplicate. But more recently, I came here about 3 years ago now to take that professional skill set that I had developed outside of Gallagher and introduce a commercial gear, if you will, into the engine of our corporate partnership program.
That's amazing. So you spoke on it a little bit, but why is youth sports so important to Shannon?
Yeah. Well, not just to me, but you know this, right? There's a strong correlation between girls playing sports,
Yes,
sticking with it, to competitive sports at older but not too old ages, and professional success. And I'm an example of that, right? So why is it important to me? I want more girls to become, professionals like I have become. I'm proud of my story. And when we think about at Gallagher, right, if we want our face to look like the face of our consumers, we are going to need to continue developing more women in business, right? So there's a strong through line from the youth sports. That's why it's important to me.
That's amazing. Yeah, we'll hit on that a little bit more here. I've got 4 nieces, one of them of which is a superstar in 3rd or 4th grade basketball, and she's a Spitfire, and I just see it in her, right? The want, the drive, and I know, hopefully one day she makes WNBA, but I know that's going to translate super well to the business world into whatever she gets into. So there's tremendous stats and facts out there about that. So I'm really glad you brought that up. So
she's lucky that she has you that knows this and recognizes it, right? And so that's already surrounding her. She probably can see herself succeeding. That's really important.
Yeah, and you got to champion that whenever possible. Broader Gallagher, what is Gallagher's role in sports?
Yeah, so Gallagher is an insurance brokerage, right? So you can't go to the store and pick up a box of insurance. You can't try it on in the dressing room and know what insurance fits and what's going to look good with the other stuff you've got, right? So you need a trusted advisor if you are a business entity that understands business insurance, from both the property that you own to the people that you employ, right? And Gallagher serves to, for our sports clients, help them take away the worry there so that they can really focus on having those great events and successful teams and community presence without worrying about that stuff. What does that look like in an arena, right? So tens of thousands of people, fans coming in to celebrate the team, and you will have risk of slip, trip, fall, right? And that could become an insurance event, right? So we're trying to help our arenas, ballparks do things like minimize the risk around slip, trip, and fall. And
Yep.
when it happens, when someone gets injured, we're there to help the injured person and the client sort of find the right way forward. Similarly, when you think about teams, clearly we're all really familiar with athletes, right?
Yep.
They themselves are big brands out there. They're in the press. They're who we cheer for. But each team is filled with a back office of employees who need employee benefits in the United States, who need a retirement package in their 401k, right? So we're there to help advise them on what are the right programs for their employees and their spaces.
Love it. To use a sports term, you guys cover all the bases. So that's where I'll end the icebreakers and get more into Gallagher itself. So, and your role at Gallagher. So, obviously, your family roots run deep at Gallagher. Famously, the Gallagher Way was written by your great uncle, maybe on a yellow legal pad. That would be an amazing story to get into. Yeah. But so you joined the company back about 3 years ago, and you had the opportunity to build your own path, right? And before stepping into this role, walk us through that journey, and then as it pertains to sports and partnerships, right? What has been your gut check? What has been your go-to to say, hey, this is something that we want to align ourselves with?
Yeah. So of course, I've been aware of Gallagher my whole life. My family still works very deeply within the organization. So what I like to think is that, when I came in, I bring a new view and a new perspective, right? And so what I then begin to look for in these partnerships is before the business, right? How do I see that our values, those Gallagher Way, you've got one of the tenants up on the wall behind me,
Love it.
that those are reflected in what we can see from a prospective partner. Are they humble and hardworking? Are they investing in the future? Are they investing in their communities? And so that's that different point of view that I can bring that is before what's going to be their insurance or their employee benefits problems, that the experts that are in our business and have been for a long time, they'll be great at answering. Right?
Yeah. I love that. We caught up with Chris Mead, who's the CMO, probably about 6 months ago now. One thing that really stood out to me and to our organization was this Gallagher Partnership Intern Program. Super unique. I think really, really awesome for anyone out there that's looking to get into any sort of internship program. So this is where you bring athletes in, they learn the business, and then they figure out kind of what's next for them. Would love for you to just give us a refresher on that program, success you've seen. This is your time to market this program to the audience here.
We're really proud of that. So first of all, we do a lot of college interns. My father, who's now the CEO, was an intern himself, right?
Wow.
So we have a long track record of being able to develop early talent through an internship program. It has a good curriculum and structure to it. With our partners, right, this is not youth sports, but they're still very much young in their lives, young and healthy, and many of them will need a second career, right? And so this is a program to help provide skills and confidence for them to see pathways into their second career. They may play for many years and retire and still need to find their income. or they may be, one injury away from ending their professional sports career. So it's a real concern that many of these athletes have is what do I do next, right? And so what we have learned at Gallagher, we actually have a number of successful professionals and associates that were former professional soccer players, football players, rugby players, right? So there's something scalable and identifiable in that, right? So we took that nugget of insight and then we went to our partners, Atlanta Falcons, Chicago Stars FC, just started with the Jacksonville Jaguars this year as well. And we said, we'd like to take this internship program and bring your players into it and give them the recognition of skill sets that they already possess that are transferable into the business world. And what we found is that very quickly, this daunting world of business is demystified. Because here we are, we're all one team working together. Sometimes you're the leader, sometimes you're the follower. They understand that world. Resilience, the hard work that goes in, day out, setting a plan, working towards it, celebrating successes, right? That's what they see that's in the business world, and it can become familiar and less daunting. And then they have hard skills, like, presentation skills and public speaking. But they also begin to realize contract negotiation. They've done this. Right? They have had to market themselves. They have had to sign their own contracts. They have had to create their own personal brands, especially the women more and more these days, right? That they have to brand themselves, That's very transferable to being an insurance or benefits salesperson that needs to cold call and break the ice, right? So, they leave the program feeling less daunted, being able to recognize that the skill set that they've developed as an athlete is highly transferable, right? And now some of them have actually come back for 2 years. So those would be...
That's how you know it's good.
Well, that's when we might actually have someone who wants to come work for us.
Right, there you go.
Which is great, but that's not, it's awesome when at the end of the day they have a Gallagher business card. But if we can help them bring Gallagher culture and that skill set, into a local insurance agency or into an analytics company, hey, that's just as successful for us as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, honestly, the more I dig in and the more I hear you talk about it, it's amazing that you can bring in all the partners into this ecosystem. And at the end of the day, you're giving them a skill set that, they might not be able to learn in a classroom or elsewhere. So, I love to see the success stories coming out of there. But we now move into, a lot of the efforts around your guys' sports and programs, right? You've put a lot behind women's sports lately, rugby especially. Mm-hmm. To an average consumer, that might not be the obvious place where brands kind of plant their flag. I think it's amazing. I am newly tuned to the rugby world. I've got some buddies who watch and are, have gone to the sevens. And funny enough, I was in Ireland probably a couple of years ago, and Ireland was playing England in Dublin. It was nice. It was incredible. I felt like I was a World Cup fan that you see in the US these days over there, and I was soaking it all in. But so walk us through, what was the thinking behind, what's the thinking behind rugby? Is there anything that surprised you, right? Traditional, sports marketing here in the States doesn't really surround rugby, so it'd be great to dive in a little bit there.
Yeah. So certainly from a certain lens, rugby is not obvious, but we recognize that in rugby there's this tremendous fandom and an audience that really well targets our buyers, right? But that also there is a lot of cultural alignment between the sport of rugby and the Gallagher Way. So in rugby, you've got 15 players on your team, and it truly takes a very differentiated set of body types and skills to be a successful team. Particularly in the women's game, like the shapes and the sizes and the skills, huge range in that. At Gallagher, we've always championed diversity in our Gallagher way. We talk about, being a team and recognizing different abilities and working together, right? So that resonates. In the Gallagher way, we say we run to problems, right?
Yes,
In rugby, there's no stoppage of play, right? So you begin, the ball is down, you have to get right back up, keep running to the next phase of play. There's no stop and reset, get the call in from the coach, what play to run.
Yeah.
So always up, scan, run to the problem, right? That mindset. And empathy. And we are a warm, close company. And in rugby, just like you were saying, Ireland, England, we're going to compete really hard on the pitch. And then afterwards, we're all going to party together.
I love that.
And that's very unique, and it is the global rugby culture.
Yes.
So for us, it was kind of a no-brainer fit of cultures and marketing opportunity. But then when you focus even more so in women's rugby,
Sure.
it's the fastest growing sport in the world in terms of grassroots all the way to professional. 70% of the decision makers on any insurance or employee benefits decision are made by women. It's a good fit.
That is, that's amazing. That's, now my mind is going to, the juxtaposition of Gallagher to rugby and, typing into any of these lovely AI searches, hey, create me a photo if Gallagher Insurance was a sport, and it would be a no-brainer that rugby would come out after hearing that. It's very, very well said. I might do that after this. We'll see. So back to women in sports, right? You guys are investing heavily in development in all sorts of aspects and future leaders and all the things that we kind of walk through. Mm-hmm. You guys have certain programs that I'd love to break down. The Own My Future series that you do with the Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment and the New York Liberty is one of those flagship programs. So we'd love to hear a little bit more about that. And then in that same vein, right, why is it so important to get beyond just slapping your logo on something and get into the communities where the team is?
As a global, large business, we recognize that we're in a position, we really have the ability and responsibility to invest in communities in ways that can change outcomes for others that wouldn't necessarily see certain futures for themselves, right? So we can talk about girls in sports and that vulnerable age around 14 where they would leave sport, or girls who wouldn't have had access to any sport, right? And then, wow, that's a certain problem. We have the ability to help address some of those issues. Why would we do that? We recognize, as Chris told you, it's like a 10 to 15 year time horizon to do that. Insurance is about taking care of people and places. We want to be seen in the communities in which we live, work, and play.
Yes.
Right. And we want to be able to make those efforts represent the diversity of our client base. Okay, so bring that then into Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment and the New York Liberty. Fantastic program where we're looking at girls in that age when they're vulnerable from, leaving sport or maybe didn't have access to sport in and around the Brooklyn community. Lots of underserved girls. And we're bringing them into a professional skill set curriculum run by the same facilitators that actually do professional development for the employees at Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment. The curriculum adapted appropriately for the age of these young women in the program, showing them teamwork activities, how to identify their own personal strengths and communicate it. And what we're saying is, if we're investing in bringing you here over the course of several weekends in a season, because we see your future potential, right? And we want to give you the skills to recognize it yourself, then we're really making a difference, right? We're really showing up in the community in a way that has a lasting effect.
Love that. Yeah, it's that kind of effort in the community is definitely long tail, and but there are immediate results that you see from these girls, the confidence, the skill sets that they can get, and especially over multiple weekends. That's incredible. And tapping in there a little bit more and going back to your rugby, there are efforts that you're doing there as well. So you have Touchline Academy and Project Rugby, right? Give us the rundown on these and maybe how they're a little bit different from what you're doing in the New York scene.
Yeah, absolutely. So those programs aren't necessarily focused on girls. The need there was that rugby itself was losing its audience. And we believe in rugby. We believe in the tenets of the culture of rugby. We believe in youth sports, right? So how could we help rugby in England with this problem of losing its audience and still tie back into doing good in the communities where we live, work, and play? So again, it was a curriculum developed that would teach rugby skills to young athletes and create teams in schools. Currently, it sits within a PE curriculum, so you have a module where you're learning about and you are playing rugby. And so now that's in state schools. It was delivered in this year in just over 180 different schools across England. We reached 12,000 students and taught them rugby, right? And for many of them, about 80 of these schools, we were able to find continuous playing experiences once they'd left that PE environment and, find a spot on a local club and keep playing. So that's Project Rugby. That's delivering grassroots to the youth, but then you also need to have coaches, right? And so if rugby is losing its audience, it also wasn't having people raise their hand and say, I want to be a youth sports coach. And that's what Touchline Academy does, right? So if we're finding those who are interested in youth sports that don't know much about rugby, certainly not enough to coach a youth side, that's where we meet those like-minded individuals, give them the skill sets, right? And you can see over the course of all these years, I think we've reached nearly 150,000 students within the UK. And the audience is now surging. The final for the Prem Rugby League was just this past weekend, and the stadium sold out, 83,000 spectators.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah, and it seems to me, right, to wrap our conversation, you guys are a true embodiment of a brand that is investing from youth to pro in a way that's authentic to your guys' story, right? You're not trying to be someone else. You're not going off and signing a random deal that has nothing to do with your Gallagher way, which is honestly not easy to do. Because you probably want to go do some cool stuff. I've been a part of some executive teams.
I have the coolest job, right?
Right. But it's so important that it's done authentically and you're staying true to your mission. And then at the end of the day, right, this is pulling through to the community, and you guys are investing not only in the community, but hopefully future leaders that are going to lead that community, right?
That's
which is
exactly right.
Which is so unique, and we appreciate you coming on and telling that story. I will give you the mic for any final words that you would like to, or plug anything that you would like to in the Gallagher or personally. And we'll close with that.
I would like to thank you for recognizing that we are doing some good hard work here. Right?
Yeah.
There's a large team. I'm one of. To invest and successfully deliver all these different creative initiatives to meet our partners with the need that their community or their sport is experiencing, takes our team to be very creative, run towards those problems,
yeah.
right? But that's how we deliver the message of who Gallagher is as a culture. What is the Gallagher Way? And so we're very proud of it, and I really appreciate the time and for you to recognize these programs we're delivering. Thank you.
You bet, Shannon. And I might call you Professor Shannon after this, because you just gave us kind of a master class in how, although it takes time, right? We all get that, how a brand can once again get in authentically in this space and be a lasting legacy, and continue to throw gas on the fire and continue to grow it. So we really appreciate you coming on, and until next time.
Thanks, Cam.
All right. Thank you, Shannon.